Today I'm 9 miles north of Leeds city centre in Bramhope, a village that is as old as the Domesday Book at least, and that was 1086. But the Romans were here long before. There are remains of a settlement nearby on the old Roman road from Adel to Ilkley. Now this street sign and lantern behind me is known as the Cross, and it points to Leeds, Otley, Bradford and Cookridge, and it was built here in 1876 at a time when the population of the village was growing. A new school had been built in 1873, and in 1881 a new church, St Giles, was built to cope with the demand from a growing congregation. Even so, the village would have only had a few hundred residents. These days, Bramhope is home to more than 3,000 people. In the 16th century, the Dinah Lee family moved to this area, and they lived here. Not in the hotel, but in Bramhope Hall, a large manor house which was built on the site that the hotel occupies today. Robert Dinah Lee must have been fabulously wealthy. Not only did he live in the biggest house in the village, but he also built this chapel with his own money. It was started in 1649, a time of considerable political and religious change in the country.
This was the year King Charles I was executed, following tensions between Catholics and Protestants being played out within the monarchy. The Puritans were a group who felt that the Protestant brand of Christianity was too much like Catholicism. Dinah Lee was a Puritan, and this chapel was built specifically for Puritan worship. Around this time, Oliver Cromwell put himself in charge of the country. He too was a Puritan, but tried to ban Christmas. As you might imagine, this did not go down too well with much of the population.
Following Cromwell's death, and with the monarchy restored under Charles II, in 1860 this chapel was taken over by the Church of England. It was regularly used as a place of worship up until 1881, by which time it proved too small, and the congregation moved across the road to the brand new church which had been built there. Just over the road from that church is this, the original water supply to the village. Now, no one knows exactly how old this is, but it was rediscovered in 1992 and restored to its former glory. This is the A660, the Otley Road, and this stretch was opened in 1842 by the Leeds Otley Turnpike Trust. Now, they would charge people tolls to use the road, but they were also responsible for its maintenance. The original road went round the Otley Chevin, but this new stretch joined on from the improved road from Leeds to Headingley through to Cookridge. There are numerous milestones on this route, all dating back to 1850. Tolls were charged until 1867, but it wasn't just the Leeds Improvement Act that put a stop to them. The growth of the railway also was responsible for making the charges of tolls unfeasible. So just how did the railway impact on the road through Bramhope? There are no tracks to be seen, and there's certainly no railway station in the village. The fact is that Bramhope is full of clues as to its railway connections, and it all starts with this tower behind me. The fact is that the line from Horsforth to the Arthington Viaduct goes right underneath the village. So 2 of these sighting towers were built in order to keep the line straight, and then 20 shafts were sunk, allowing tunnelling to take place. The first shaft was finished in 1846 and tunnelled onto the second, and then onto the third, and so on. Now, 4 of the shafts were kept for ventilation, and one of them sits just at the side of the A660. This is one of the ventilation shafts, and it's actually 240 feet deep. That is half the height of Blackpool Tower. Now, when the Bramhope Tunnel was built, it was the third longest tunnel in the country. The works were on an epic scale, but it came at a considerable human cost too.
2,300 workers and 400 horses were brought in to do the work, and on a daily basis more than 2,000 wagon loads of rock and earth was removed to be tipped nearby. These workers lived in temporary wooden huts called bothies, some in a field nearby and some along the line. There were day and night shifts with up to 17 in each hut taking turns to use the beds in very unsanitary conditions. Many had brought their families with, and the local school suddenly had to deal with 4 times the usual number of children. The work was dangerous, with 24 workers losing their lives over the 2 years of construction. They are commemorated by a monument in Otley Churchyard, which was built by the tunnel contractor.
The monument is built to the design of the north entrance to the railway tunnel. So I'm going to put my wellies on and go and see if I can find the entrance to the tunnel in these woods. And here it is. The Bramhope Tunnel is more than 2 miles long. It required more than 190,000 cubic metres of shale and sandstone to be removed during its construction, all of which was tipped into nearby fields, and something like 7 billion litres of water was pumped out. It overran its budget more than 4 times. It cost something like £200 million in today's money to build, but there were still funds left for this ornate entrance with its 3 turrets and its ornate carvings. At one time, railway workers lived in the larger turret. Now, the tunnel is still in use today, but is often dogged by problems caused by flooding. Of all the places in Bramhope, this is probably the best known, Golden Acre Park. It's one of Leeds City Council's green spaces, and it covers a space of around 137 acres.
What most people don't know is that this park was originally opened in 1932 as a privately run amusement park with a miniature railway running around a boating lake, a swimming pool called the Blue Lagoon, a helter-skelter and a zoo. Failing to be as successful as the recently opened Blackpool Pleasure Beach, the park closed in 1938.
Leeds City Council bought the park after the Second World War, and they created ornamental and display gardens. The park also hosts part of the National Plant Archive, and an adjacent nature reserve connects this park to the Meanwood Valley Urban Trail. Now, the ornamental railway used to go around the boating lake, and it had 3 station stops on it, but nothing remains of any of this except for these 5 concrete blocks behind me, which form part of the station platform. Even this railway line is not original and was added later on. Bramhope is now home to some of the finest properties in the city, and it's come a long way from its agricultural past. But just look around and there's ample evidence of the rich and fascinating history of this thriving suburb of Leeds. This is Jonathan Straight for The Lowdown.